So early signing day gave us all the fireworks, all the excitement we could have wanted, but with all of that in mind, I want to take a deep dive into Alabama's recruiting class because this is a really solid recruiting class, one that I think we need to break down. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. So hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you happy with the current status of Alabama's recruiting class? And then let me know which commit you are the most excited about. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though small, are massive to content creators such as myself in both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all of that being said, we have got a lot to break down, so let's just go ahead and hop right into it. Because the Crimson Tide's recruiting class currently sits second in the nation with 24 commits, only behind Texas A&M's class. And Texas A&M is putting together a stellar recruiting class, one that if they win the remaining battles they're in, they will actually break the award that Alabama got last year as having the highest rated class in 24/7 Sports modern recruiting era. That is unbelievable. But even then, one thing that I think is very important to point out, even though Alabama currently sits as the second best recruiting class in the nation, they have the highest average rated recruit rank in all of recruiting in college football right now, which is really where I want to turn our attention because Alabama with 24 players has a class that is really solid and one I think needs to be broken down. And when we start breaking this class down, we always need to talk about what you were able to do in your state. And Alabama absolutely dominated the recruiting of Alabama. When we look at it, the top 10 players in Alabama, 6 of them rolled with the Tide. And one thing I always talk about is you're not going to be able to win all the battles in your state. Recruiting is way too national now, and in a state like Alabama, not only is the Crimson Tide going after these commits, as well as almost every other power institution in the nation, you have Auburn in state as well. So you do not have a state in which you're the only power school, and you get to benefit from that. But 6 out of the top 10 is an insane haul, but we need to look at who was involved in this haul. And when we look at it, there were 2 5-stars. Jeremiah Alexander, who, oh yeah, by the way, aside from being the #1 player in the state of Alabama, is also a top 10 player in the nation off the edge. 6'2", 235, someone who had a stellar senior campaign, someone I can't wait to see what he's able to do once he gets on campus. But he's not alone in that aspect of me being very excited about what they can do on campus and having a stellar senior campaign. Because the other 5-star from the state of Alabama, Emmanuel Henderson, absolutely qualifies for both of those. Emmanuel Henderson had insane production as a senior at the running back position, but he is someone who can do pretty much well anything on the football field. This young man is a football player of the highest order, and because of that, I can't wait to see what he does when he gets on campus. The Crimson Tide, though having a stacked running back room, showed why you have stacked running back rooms this year. Because college football is a physical game and injuries are going to occur. Multiple teams every year are going to get bit by the injury bug. And if it happens to you, you better have the depth to be able to deal with it. Emmanuel Henderson is an individual that continues that depth that the Crimson Tide want at the running back position. But the Crimson Tide also got in another running back, Jamarian Miller from the state of Texas, a top 100 player in the nation, a top 10 running back in the nation, only adding into the quality depth they have at that position. When we're looking down, though, I want to now turn our attention, keeping on the offensive side of the ball, to the other 5-star signee in this class, Ty Simpson. A top 25 prospect in the nation, a top 3 quarterback in the nation. Anytime you're able to get in a 5-star quarterback, it's going to excite your offensive playmakers. I already talked about 2 running backs, Henderson and Miller, that you can absolutely add those into the mix. I'm not saying Ty Simpson is the reason they signed. That's foolish. What I am saying, though, is whenever you have a 5-star quarterback as part of your class, it makes it much easier to envision a powerful offense being able to continue, and that helps offensive playmakers of every position. Whenever we're looking at Ty Simpson, though, not only is he a 5-star quarterback, we're looking at the leadership intangibles, and throughout the entirety of the recruiting process, he and Emmanuel Henderson did a phenomenal job of trying to get guys in this class. That's the type of personality that you would think would excite these offensive playmakers. And then when you look at what Alabama was able to get, it absolutely looked like it did. Because from the wide receiver position, Alabama was able to get in Shaz Preston, a top 50 player in the nation, top 3 wide receiver. Any other year, he's pretty much, well, a 5-star. You can book it. Shaz Preston was one of many offensive playmakers the Alabama Crimson Tide are going to look to bring into the offensive side of the ball that are going to be massive additions to this room. Shaz Preston, Isaiah Bond, whether we're talking about Kendrick Law, Aaron Anderson, the Crimson Tide got a lot of dudes into this class, not to forget Kobe Prentice, who, by the way, had a meteoric rise, and he's someone I think Alabama fans really need to remember the name Kobe Prentice because he's phenomenally gifted. All these wide receivers offer speed. All these wide receivers offer a ton of excitement for Crimson Tide fans, and when you mix this wide receiver group with the wide receiver group Alabama got last year, that's when I think it becomes really scary to sit and think about the possibilities. But finishing off on the offensive side of the ball, before we quickly address the defensive side of the ball, we need to talk about the tight end position in offensive line, and we'll start with the tight end. This is an area where Alabama's class did take a hit with the loss of Jaleel Skinner, and I understand. It's a hit that can be sustained because you have Amari Nablack and Elijah Brown, 2 tight ends that every other institution in the nation would do a lot to get into their class, quite frankly. Those 2 individuals are phenomenally talented. With the loss of Skinner, you still have those 2 tight ends, so Alabama can sleep easy at night there, especially when you look at Nablack, who has got to be an intriguing athlete for Alabama fans because his upside is unbelievable. The offensive line position is another one where I was very pleased with. Alabama signs 3 offensive linemen, Tyler Booker leading the charge along with Elijah Pritchett and Dane Shore, but it's what they were able to do in relation to what they pulled last year. And when you look at the haul last year and this year, that's where you got to get really excited. Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball because one of the biggest events of the early signing period happened for the Crimson Tide on the defensive side of the ball. And we'll start talking about the DB position because Alabama ended up getting Earl Little Jr., an individual who Tide fans have wanted for quite some time. They got Traquan Fegans, a very talented corner out the state of Alabama, someone who is going to be a much needed piece in this Alabama secondary. But we cannot talk about what Alabama did in recruiting, especially talking about the secondary, without talking about Eli Ricks transferring from LSU to Alabama, which may have been one of the biggest wins of the entirety of early signing period. Because Alabama missed on Denver Harris and Damani Jackson. But whenever you miss on those guys, you have to find an answer. Well, one of those answers is Earl Little Jr., a cornerback who I don't understand is rated outside the top 100 players in the nation. I think he's one of the top players in all of high school football, easily one of the top corners. I digress. You're able to answer a loss there, but you need more. So what do? Well, Saban and company turn to the transfer portal and get a guy who we know is a 5-star translated. Because as much as I, as an Alabama fan, wanted Denver Harris, as much as I wanted Damani Jackson, and as much as I absolutely believe both of those dudes are going to go to the next level and translate because they are that good, we know without a shadow of a doubt what Eli Ricks does. We know he was a freshman All-American. We know he can be a top corner in the SEC. There is no question, there is no doubt to that statement. So when you get in a Ricks with a Fegans, with an individual such as Kite, with an individual such as Earl Little Jr., you got to be very excited. The linebacker position, Alabama did a great job. Sean Murphy is someone I can't wait to see. They lose out on Robert Woodyard, who flips from Alabama to Auburn, but whenever you're able to get in a Sean Murphy, you feel very good about that. Not only that, Jeremiah Alexander at the edge, Jahad Campbell at the edge. This is a group that I cannot wait to see. And finally, we need to talk about the defensive line because this is an area where some people have said they thought Alabama would do a bit more. And certainly Alabama may have lost on some battles. I don't think people realize the talent they got in this class on the defensive line. Whether we're talking Curtis Perry, who's got phenomenal upside, top 75 in the nation, just outside of the top 10 defensive tackles in the nation, that's someone who we have to keep an eye on. Or whether we're talking about Isaiah Hastings, top 300 in the nation. Alabama has defensive linemen in this class that they need to be excited about, and I think are going to translate. And then we need to look at what happens next year in this class of 2023, where in the state of Alabama, there's a lot of defensive line talent that they are going to be going all out for. So yes, Alabama may not have gotten all the defensive line talent they wanted in this class, but the talent they did get is really impressive and must excite the fans. So with that, I cannot wait to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, let me know. That's it. See ya.